Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. This week, we're going to be continuing our study of New York City's immigrants, and we are going to be continuing our study of the Levine family and what their life was like when they first moved to New York City's Lower East Side in the early 1900s. We are going to be continuing their story, following up our reading of Leaving Home with the next part called Getting Started, what their life was like in their apartments, what their daily life was like when they first started adjusting to New York City's culture. We are going to be learning a key term called tenement. A tenement is the type of apartment that the Levine family lived in. We will be looking at an image of what their kitchen looked like inside their apartment. We will be watching a short video clip sponsored by the Tenement Museum, a very interesting museum that restores New York City's tenements so viewers today could see a closer look at what life was like during this time period when many immigrants first started coming to New York City. Students will share out details that they learn about tenements after watching the video, as well as writing a complete sentence describing what life might have been like in a tenement apartment. Students will revisit their word knowledge chart, adding information about the academic vocabulary words, conditions, and identity. Students will have an interesting discussion about the text, Getting Started. There are a number of interesting discussion questions that students will love to participate in, as well as draw connections between the experiences of the Levine family and their own experiences. There is a number of reading strategies that teachers could use before, during, and after reading. Students can look at text features. Teachers can model annotating the text. What type of text is this? How do we address challenging vocabulary words in the text? And following the text, teachers can use a very effective discussion method called a wraparound. This can be done either remotely or in person. This is an excellent way for teachers to encourage students to participate and to draw connections between their own experiences and the text, as well as to draw on their own prior experiences and their own opinions regarding the text. It's important to give students a few minutes to prepare their responses so that when they're called on, they don't feel off guard or unprepared. As we continue, there's a number of after reading strategies that teachers could use after reading the text. Students could write a short summary of the text. Students could come up with questions that they would want to ask the Levine family. And students could visit the Tenement Museum website to learn about the project they are doing right now, where they are actually rebuilding one of these tenement houses. Finally, there's a number of possible closing activities that teachers could use. There may not be enough time for all of these activities, but teachers could choose which ones they feel would be best for their students. One is a check for understanding, where students could share information about a thing that they brought from their home country to their new life here in New York. This thing does not have to be a physical thing, but it could be a tradition or an aspect of their native culture that they wanted to keep with them. Another connection that students can make is to make connections between the way they see New York City today and what they are learning about New York City in the early 1900s. Now we are going to jump right into the lesson. Can somebody please read the essential question? Good. What are the experiences of immigrants? What are the life experiences of immigrants? We're going to dive deeper into what the daily life was like of these immigrants in New York City. Can somebody please read the first lesson objective? Good. To read closely, to make logical inferences from the text. Good. We're going to make inferences. We're going to draw conclusions. We're going to make predictions about the text. Can somebody please read the second lesson objective? Good. To interpret words and phrases as they are used in the text. We're going to learn new vocabulary and how to address challenging vocabulary in the text we read. For the text we are going to do today, we are going to be focusing on this key vocabulary word, the word tenement. Can somebody please read the definition for a tenement? Good. A rundown and overcrowded apartment house, especially in a poor section of a large city. Good. Tenements were small apartments. There were many apartments on each floor, and they were often in poor neighborhoods in large cities. They were often crowded. This is the kitchen of the Levine family's tenement. This is what their kitchen would have looked like at the time. As you look at this image, I want you to focus on what you see. Good. What do you think? Good. What do you wonder? Good. You might say, in the image, I see pots and pans. You might say, in the image, I see hanging clothes. You might say, I think that it was a small apartment. You could see how small it looks. I think that it was dirty. One thing I wonder is how many people live there. One thing I wonder is how everyone lived in such a small apartment. Now we are going to take a look at a video clip from New York City's Tenement Museum to gain a better understanding of how the Lower East Side has changed. Teachers can click this link to open up the YouTube video. You can pause my video now and show the YouTube clip. After watching the video clip, students are going to share 2 details that they learned about daily life in the tenement apartments. Students can also write a complete sentence about what life was like in a tenement apartment. Students can write such sentences such as, tenements were small apartments, or tenements were crowded, or many people lived in a small tenement. Many immigrants lived in tenements when they first moved to New York City. Students can then add information to their chart about conditions and identity. Students can add sentences such as, the conditions of tenements were small, dirty, and crowded. For identity, many of the immigrants on the Lower East Side had a Jewish identity. Now you can click this link to open up the text, Getting Started. There are a number of different discussion questions that you can use either using a wraparound strategy or another strategy where students can maybe work with their peers to react and draw connections to the text. You can click this link to open up the text. Teachers can also model annotations using this text to help language learners build up their reading comprehension strategies. Now you can jump right into the text.